She won't respect your words. She'll respect the distance you're brave enough to create. That's what most men don't learn until it's too late. You could send her the longest text, pour your heart out, promise the world, and still lose her respect. Not because you didn't care, but because you never stopped showing her that you did. That's what flips the script: not begging, not chasing, but your silence. Not the kind that hopes she'll reach out, but the kind that says, I don't need to be heard to be clear. When you fully detach, no mixed signals, no second chances, something changes. She begins to feel the absence of a man who used to show up without hesitation. And when she looks around and realizes you're no longer orbiting her world, that's when respect starts growing. Not because you punished her, but because you elevated yourself, because you stopped trying to earn a place in her life and chose to stand firmly in your own. This video isn't about bitterness or revenge. It's about power. Not loud, performative power, but the quiet strength of a man who's done explaining himself. If you're tired of being taken for granted, if you've been too available, too loyal, too patient, stay right here, because what I'm about to show you will change how you see detachment forever. And if you're still watching this, drop a comment below that says, I'm ready to change. Let the world know this is your turning point. Number 1. Respect begins where neediness ends. Respect doesn't start with how much you give. It begins when you stop needing anything in return. You can show up every day, be available, prove your devotion, and still be overlooked. Why? Because neediness is felt, even when hidden beneath effort. A woman doesn't respect a man who places her above himself. The more you orbit her, the more she becomes your center, and the more she quietly pulls away. She might enjoy your consistency, but not the energy behind it. And that energy, Marcus Aurelius would call it being ruled by externals. When your sense of worth is tied to her reactions, you're no longer sovereign. You may have been the guy who rushed to explain every silence, who tried to fix every small disconnect, who thought persistence was power. But here's the truth. You were operating from fear, not clarity. And fear never earns respect. A Stoic man leads himself first. He doesn't chase peace from another person. He creates it from within. When you detach, not with bitterness, but with certainty, you shift the energy. You stop asking. You stop proving. You simply walk. And that absence, not the silence, but the stillness, is what she feels. She notices the man who used to need her attention has chosen his path instead. That's when her perception changes. Not because you punished her, but because you elevated your standard. You're not rejecting her. You're redirecting yourself. You're saying without explanation, I will no longer beg for what should come naturally. Respect doesn't rise from overgiving. It rises from emotional independence. So, if you find yourself explaining more, texting first, trying to hold something together, alone, pause. Respect begins when you walk away from what no longer respects you, and when you do it calmly. Not out of anger, but out of self-honor. That's when she finally sees what she once took for granted. Number 2. Stop explaining. Start living. When distance begins, most men start talking more. They send long messages, explain their silence, justify their withdrawal. But here's the truth. The more you talk, the less she feels. You don't need to narrate your worth. You need to live it. Let your choices do the talking. Let your calm speak louder than your words. A Stoic man doesn't seek to be understood. He simply continues to live by his code. With or without an audience, There's something powerful about a man who no longer explains every step he takes. When you stop chasing her validation and redirect that energy into building your own path, something shifts. She starts to notice, not because you said something, but because you stopped saying anything. She wonders, why isn't he fighting for me anymore? Why isn't he asking for closure? And that's when the balance shifts. You're no longer trying to be heard. You've become someone who doesn't need to speak. Imagine this. She fades. She pulls back. Most men panics. But you choose a different route. You hit the gym. You dive into your purpose. You surround yourself with growth. You don't beg for her attention. You offer silence backed by transformation. That space you create, it forces her to feel what your presence used to give. The Stoics called this apatheia, not emotional detachment, but clarity in chaos. You don't react. You respond by elevating. That quiet shift doesn't just protect your peace. It earns you something deeper, respect. Because when a woman sees you no longer need her to feel whole, that's when she realizes what she's losing. Number 3. Her uncertainty is your power. You don't have to hurt her to shift the dynamic. You just have to stop being predictable, not in a reckless way, but with calm distance and emotional stillness. When you stop reacting, when you stop wearing your emotions on your sleeve, you create tension. You create silence that echoes. And in that quiet space, she starts feeling what she once took for granted. A Stoic man doesn't beg to be understood. He lets others draw their own conclusions while he continues walking forward. Most men panic in uncertainty. They try to fix it, explaining, chasing, overcompensating. They believe making her feel secure will make her stay. But the truth is, once she feels no risk of losing you, she stops valuing your presence. That's why detachment is powerful. It's not about punishing her. It's about becoming unpredictable, removing her ability to read your every move. And emotional mystery, that's what pulls her back in. Let's make it real. She withdraws. Her texts slow down. She says she needs space. Most men respond with desperation. You don't. You pose. You don't chase. You mirror the distance without drama. And because you're grounded in your mission, she feels the difference. Not through what you say, but through what you've stopped offering your attention, your time, your energy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the lesson. Don't argue your worth. Don't demand a place. Be the man who can walk away, not from anger, but from self-respect. Her uncertainty isn't your weakness. It's your mirror. It shows you who you are when things aren't clear. If you stay steady, if you remain loyal to your values, your path, your code, she will feel that shift. And one day, when she realizes you're no longer chasing, she'll finally see who you truly were all along. Now tell me, have you ever seen her energy shift the moment you stop chasing? Drop a comment below or type, "I choose silence over desperation." Let's talk about it. Number 4, the man who walks away with peace. Any man can leave in anger, but the man who walks away in stillness, that's the one she never forgets. Because that kind of silence doesn't come from rage. It comes from clarity, from knowing that your value doesn't depend on being understood, needed, or even chosen. You don't have to shout. You don't need to make a scene. You just turn and walk without tension, without chaos. And that quiet leaves an echo she won't be able to silence. She'll wonder, how is he not chasing Why didn't he fight for me this time? It's not the drama that haunts her. It's your emotional neutrality. You didn't explain. You didn't plead. You didn't crumble under her withdrawal. That's the Stoic edge. As Marcus Aurelius taught, master yourself, not others. Detachment isn't cold. It's controlled. You're not leaving to get a reaction. You're leaving to return to your peace. That's why it lands so hard, because you're not orbiting her anymore. You're back in your center, anchored, calm, unmoved. Imagine she sends a vague message, one she knows used to pull you back. But this time, you pose, or maybe you don't respond at all. Not out of spite, but because your energy is no longer for sale. And in that silence, her mind races. She starts to see everything she overlooked when you were always available. Now, you're not begging. You're not explaining. You've chosen peace over validation, and that changes everything. Because the man who walks away in peace doesn't walk away to prove anything. He walks because he knows exactly who he is. He doesn't need her to see it, but she will. Number 5, detach to rediscover direction. Too many men lose themselves chasing someone else. They abandon their routines, their vision, and their values bit by bit until they don't recognize themselves anymore. But detachment is the course correction, because when you step away from her orbit, you finally return to your own. You realign, you recenter, and in that stillness, you begin to radiate something stronger than charm direction. That's what separates a Stoic man from the rest. He doesn't seek validation from the outside. He chooses focus over fantasy, mission over mood, and clarity over chaos. When a woman sees that your world doesn't revolve around her, something shifts. It's not about punishing her with silence or playing games. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you started sacrificing just to be liked, just to keep her interested. You see, when a man is always available, texting instantly, canceling plans, ignoring his goals, he slowly drains his own power. And ironically, that's when she starts to pull away. Not because she's cruel, but because the version of you she was drawn to, the man who had purpose, is fading. You're no longer leading your life. You're following her mood. But detachment changes that. When you stop proving and start pursuing your own mission again, she notices, not because you told her, but because your energy changed. Suddenly, she's not the center. Your growth is. The Stoics had a word for this state, eudaimonia, a flourishing life in alignment with virtue and inner purpose. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Her distance isn't your downfall, it's your redirection. Detach fully, not to punish her, but to find your compass again. That's when you become the man who can't be manipulated, the one who walks in calm, not chaos, the one who values peace over approval. And in that stillness, she doesn't just see your strength, she remembers what true respect feels like. Number 6, let her feel the void, not hear it. You don't have to slam doors or post cryptic quotes to make a point. You don't need dramatic exits or emotional speeches. The most powerful message you'll ever send is silence backed by stillness. Not silence to play games, but silence because your attention has shifted from chasing her to centering yourself. That absence she feels, that's not emptiness. It's your energy returning home. See, a Stoic doesn't announce his departure. He simply moves, quietly, intentionally. And in that void, She feels what she once overlooked. Your voice may be gone, but your absence, it echoes. This is where restraint replaces reaction. Not coldness, clarity. You don't need to convince her you were valuable. You just take that value with you. And that shift, it speaks volumes. Because the moment you stop watching her stories, stop waiting for replies, stop holding space she no longer earns, that's when you regain what was slowly slipping, your self-respect. Halfway detachment is a trap. It keeps you lingering in limbo, checking your phone, refreshing your doot. But full detachment, it frees you. It's not about proving her wrong. It's about proving yourself right, that you deserve peace over pretense, that you're not going to water a garden where nothing grows. She'll notice, not because you told her, but because you stopped performing. No more explaining, no more emotional charity. Only presence redirected inward. That silence, it pokes at her ego. It questions her assumptions. It forces her to ask, what did I lose? Because what she lost wasn't just a man. It was a man who gave from a full cup until it ran dry. And now that cup is being refilled, not with her attention, but with your mission, your discipline, your purpose. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And being one means walking away not with bitterness, but with grace. You're not punishing her. You're protecting your path. You're choosing your peace. And that choice, that silence, it's louder than any explanation. Let her wonder. Let her feel the stillness where your presence used to live. Because a man who walks with self-respect leaves footprints in places words never could. And if this message struck something in you, if you've been the man who gave too much, stayed too long, or explained too often, comment below and tell your story. Or just type, "I choose peace over validation." And if this message felt like truth, tap that like button to help more men hear it. Number 7. Rejection doesn't shrink you. Attachment does. Rejection isn't what weakens a man. Attachment is. She may walk away. She might act like you never existed. But the pain doesn't come from the goodbye. It comes from clinging to the memory. Like Seneca said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. It's not the event that crushes you. It's your mind replaying it 100 times, trying to rewrite the ending. The strongest men don't deny the sting of rejection. They just don't stay there. They detach. They stop checking her profile. They stop telling their friends the same story. They stop hoping for a text that never comes. That's not cold. That's clarity. Because real damage begins when you attach your identity to someone who already let go. Most men keep orbiting around women who've moved on. And that's not love, it's emotional addiction. An addiction to validation, attention, and closure. But the man who chooses self-respect over obsession, he becomes a mystery, a presence that no longer explains itself, a man she suddenly can't figure out anymore. You don't chase, you don't explain, you don't perform, you accept the no without breaking your frame. And in that stillness, in that silence, something shifts. She starts to feel what she took for granted, not because you demanded her respect, but because you stopped needing her approval to feel whole. So let go fully, not halfway, not as a tactic, but because you finally realize you don't need her to recognize your worth. Number 8. Discipline is the new desire. You used to be the guy who sent the sweet texts, the one who stayed up late for her, the one who shifted his whole schedule to match her moods. But that man was chasing desire, The man she begins to respect, he isn't chasing anymore. He's choosing structure. Discipline becomes his identity, not to impress her, but to elevate himself. He's no longer driven by emotion. He wakes up at 5 a.m., not for validation, but for mission. He trains because his body is a vessel for strength. He reads because his mind is his sharpest weapon. He builds not because he's trying to win someone back, but because he refuses to stay small. That man, he's not texting first. He's not scrolling her page. He's not hoping for attention. He's locked into growth. And here's the shift. She feels it. Not because you said something clever, not because you gave her space, but because you reclaimed the space where she used to live in your mind. That's where attraction begins, not in the performance, but in the stillness of a man who no longer needs to perform. Most men crumble when a woman walks away. They chase, they spiral, they try to win her back with more emotion, more effort, more access. But a stoic man doesn't collapse. He calibrates. He returns to his code, his values, his time, his direction. Seneca once said, "Wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you can do without." Apply that to her attention, her validation, her presence when you don't need it. You become powerful when you stop revolving around her. She starts questioning the orbit. She won't say it out loud, but she'll wonder why you're not checking in, why you're not chasing, why you're not playing the old role. And in that silence, something shifts. You're not being cold. You're being consistent with your path, because discipline isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting your energy. You no longer live for the reward of her affection. You live for the reward of your own progress. And in a world where most men fold under pressure, you become unforgettable. So, stop chasing desire. Start living discipline. That's the new power. That's the man she never expected. And that's the man she won't forget. Number 9, you don't pull back. You evolve. This isn't about sulking in silence. It's about growth. When you detach, you're not just walking away from her. You're walking away from the version of yourself that once needed her validation. You evolve. And suddenly, the man she used to know becomes a stranger she can't stop thinking about. You didn't disappear to make her miss you. You simply rose beyond who you used to be. That's stoicism in motion, becoming unrecognizable in the best way. And let's be clear, this isn't about triggering a reaction. That's just emotional dependence in disguise. True detachment is knowing your worth doesn't rely on whether she acknowledges it. You stop checking if she viewed your story. You stop rehearsing how to accidentally run into her. You stop living in the shadows of what was, and you start showing up. For yourself, early mornings, sharper focus, a stronger body, a calmer mind. That's the Stoic path. You don't run from the pain. You refine yourself through it. A woman only starts to truly respect you when she realizes you don't need her attention to function. That's when the power dynamic flips. She begins to replay old moments. She questions your stillness. She wonders, did he change? Or was I too blind to see his depth? It's not that you turned cold. It's that you became focused. There's a difference. Marcus Aurelius never needed applause to feel powerful. He lived with intention. And so should you. If you want her respect, stop being someone she can chase and become someone who's already moved forward. Not out of anger, not out of games, but out of alignment. When your evolution is so real, so grounded, so quiet, that she barely recognizes the man she thought she understood. That's when silence becomes impact. Because this isn't about ignoring her, it's about no longer needing her energy to feel like a man. You don't pull back, hoping she notices. You evolve to the point where it no longer matters if she does. And ironically, that's exactly when she does. So before we move forward, pause for a moment and reflect. Are you living for her validation or for your own evolution? If this message spoke to something inside you, let me know in the comments. Or simply type, I evolve in silence. Not for her, but for me. I read every response. And your story might just be the reminder another man needs. Ready to go deeper? Let's keep walking forward. Number 10. Let her chase the version she ignored. You no longer wait for her message. You no longer check if she viewed your story. You no longer carry the hope that she'll suddenly realize your worth, because you've outgrown the man who needed her validation. Now, you're becoming the version of yourself she never expected to lose. And if she wants a glimpse of that man again, she'll have to chase him, not because you're playing hard to get, but because she gave up her chance when it was easy to have you. That's the cost of respect, letting her face the void you no longer fill. You don't pull back to get a reaction. You don't vanish to prove a point. You evolve. Quietly, powerfully, and with every disciplined step forward, you become a little more unreachable. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving her wrong. It's about proving yourself right. You stop seeking closure. You stop replaying old conversations in your head. You stop making yourself available to someone who became blind to your value. Instead, you redirect your energy inward. You build. You train. You sharpen your mind. You align your actions with your purpose. You rise not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're no longer seeking to be understood. You're no longer begging to be remembered. You've traded validation for evolution. Now, she doesn't hear from you. She sees you. The version of you she once took for granted has disappeared, not out of bitterness, but because you've outgrown the stage she kept you on. And what haunts her now isn't what you said. It's what you no longer need to say. You became a ghost, not to manipulate, but to move forward. She won't admit it. But the silence unsettles her, not because you vanished, but because you stopped orbiting her world. And now she's no longer sure, no longer certain. That's when she starts questioning, was he really the man I thought I could replace, or did I let go of something rare? That's the paradox. When you stop needing her to see your worth, that's when she finally begins to. Most men don't realize this until the damage is already done. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's not earned through over-explaining, texting endlessly, or proving your loyalty to someone who's uncertain about you. It's earned through presence, through clarity, through discipline, and most importantly, through your ability to walk away without anger, but with purpose. Every lesson in this video leads back to one truth. A woman doesn't start respecting you when you fight for her attention. She starts when you stop needing it. Detachment isn't silence for the sake of silence. It's not about disappearing to confuse her or punish her. It's about reappearing in your own life, waking up with a mission, training your body, sharpening your focus, and living by your own code, not by her reaction. That's when the shift happens. She doesn't feel guilt, she feels your absence. She doesn't hear words, she feels the void where your attention used to live. That's when you stop orbiting her, and she starts wondering what planet you've moved to. Not because you vanished to get her back, but because you evolved into someone who no longer looks back. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free," and freedom begins when you stop chasing what no longer feeds your soul. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of today's message cut deepest? Was there a moment that made you realize you've been giving too much to someone who never truly valued it? Let me know in the comments. Or just type, "I choose myself." I read every single one. And if this video helped you see things more clearly, hit that like button so more men like you can find it too. And don't stop here. Click on the next video that's waiting for you. It's time to go deeper, to become the man she thought she'd never lose. And more importantly, the man you finally respect waking up to. Stay grounded, stay sharp, and remember, the strongest move is made in silence.